Hey guys, Simon here. Now I thought I'd talk about something that I think a lot of people don't understand about coaching. And I think on the outside, most people think that what they're getting is a program, they're getting check-ins each week, and they're getting a bit of accountability. And that's pretty much all that happens. And yes, that is part and parcel of the coaching experience, but there is so much more that we can do as a coach for the cyclists and the athletes that we coach to get the best out of their training and to get the athlete and the cyclist to really develop as a person and understand their training, their process of their training, and get the most out of their training and become a better person over time. So the thing that I'm working with at the moment is making sure that my cyclists develop a certain amount of values and think about what they're doing within training, because a lot of people, when they are thinking about being coached, is they feel like we're the ones that are in charge, the coach is in charge, and therefore they can take their brain out and stop thinking. That's not the case. And what my job is, and what I try to do and develop with my coaching, is get the athlete to step up and start taking control and really developing their understanding of their training. And it's a proper communication process of them really developing their fitness with a fuller understanding of everything that's involved. So what I thought I'd talk about this week is the values, attributes, and habits I'm trying to get to instill in the athletes and the cyclists I coach so they get even more out of their training and become more accomplished over time. So, as I like to say, let's get into it. First off, the most important thing I think cyclists and athletes should really do is put themselves first. Look, I get it. Family and work life are really important, like super important. But then again, so is your own fitness. And also, when you're trying to achieve something that's bigger than you ever thought is possible, you can't put yourself last. You really have to think about time management. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why do I have to time manage my own time and my fun and my training? Well, look, the thing is, when you do, you're taking control of your own situation. You're actually looking forward and thinking, hang on a minute, my life is pretty busy right now. So if I sit down with a family and talk about what I'm trying to achieve and get them all on board, and also make sure that it's fitting in as much as possible, so there's a bit of yin and yang, to make sure that you are doing your training and making sure that you're helping them out, then you're probably going to get the most out of your training. So being in charge of your own time management over a week is really important. And that takes a little bit of forward thinking. But when you do, that's you firmly putting yourself back in the driving seat and working out what you can do in your training week. And this is the thing that all the greatest athletes and cyclists that I coach do really well. And when they do, they start to see much better results. Let's talk about setting realistic timeframes. I've lost count a number of times people have come to me saying, Simon, I need your help. I've got this event that I'm aiming for and it's in 4 weeks' time. Can you get me super uber fit? The answer to that question is no. Think of your training a bit like building a house. When you first start thinking about it and putting it all together, it looks like it's going to be pretty straightforward and it's probably going to cost you X amount of money. But if anybody has actually ever done a house up, they'll know that actually it takes much longer to do that and it's probably going to cost them a lot more. It's the same with your training. When you first start, it's going to take you a while to get your fitness to grow. And it's not just about building strength, power and speed. It's about learning the process of being able to ride your bike at those speeds consistently over time. So it's not just about a fitness thing, it's about an experience and it's about learning how to be a better cyclist. So that brings me back to what I originally said. When you start training for something, have a realistic time frame for it. Trust me, you'll get more out of your training, you'll be way more confident when you hit your event time, and you'll probably have more fun doing your training. This next one is something that I think if you really embrace, I can guarantee you'll get way more enjoyment out of your training. And actually, you'll never be too worried about going into your event ever again. The process of your training should be the goal, not the end result. And athletes that I coach who are always overwhelmed about what they're trying to achieve are the ones that are always focusing on that end result as the big, scary thing that they're trying to achieve. The ones that know that are going to get to that big end goal in the best possible shape are the ones that focus on the process of their daily and their weekly training. It really is that simple. Let me try and explain that in a way that maybe you can visualize it a little bit better. Let's take a hill rep session. So 3 times, 8 minutes at threshold. The very first time you did that, you went out way too hard. And then in the next rep, you suffered. And in the next rep, you almost died. Now, when you come back and you learn from it, the process of that training, every time you come to that particular hill rep session, you learn the process of how to do that better. So you learn to even out the power. So each rep is better in its power. You learn to even out the cadence. So each rep, you are going faster for the same power because you're not slowing down. All of this is part and parcel of your understanding of your cycling. So you're learning the process of how to get better as a cyclist. If you're racing it all the time, you're never going to understand that fully, and that's holding you back. It's the learning process over time that helps you become a faster, more efficient, more confident cyclist. And you can't do that rushed. You can't do it in a short amount of time. It's taken me, I reckon, at least 10 years to really understand where I can put my efforts in and what I can do over time. And I'm still learning about it. And that's the thing. It's always a learning process. And the thing is, yes, when I go and do my events, I'm pretty confident that I'm in pretty good shape to do them. But I've learned the process over time. And also, it's taken me a lot of time to get here. That's the thing. So going back to what I originally said, when you're thinking about developing your training, a really good value that every cyclist and athlete can have would be to think about the process of everything they're doing in their training, and it will see you right. This next one I think is really important for everybody to understand. And I think once you hold this dear and you understand it and you accept it, you are going to be so more relaxed around your training, and you'll probably get a load more confident with your training over time too. You need to understand that your training is never, ever going to be 100% perfect. Yes, as a coach, trust me, it's brilliant to see that athletes and the cyclists I coach hit green in training peaks all the time. And to be honest, that rarely happens. For the most part, the cyclists and athletes that I coach probably hit around about 90 to 80% of their training on a week-to-week basis. And this is why training's so tough. It's because we don't always hit training that's planned. But when you relax around it and think, look, this is the way training should work. It shouldn't be beautifully perfect, whether it's over the whole week or whether you're going into a particular session. Because don't know about you, but sometimes I go into a session and I feel like I'm ready to give it my best, but I just can't quite get the power out that I'm supposed to be trying to achieve in that session. And that's normal. It happens that way. As I like to say to the cyclists and athletes that I coach, you are not a robot. So don't expect your body to keep pumping out everything that you expect it to. Sometimes it's going to chuck you a curveball for no particular reason that you can't even put your finger on it. But this is the thing. Accept that your training isn't always going to be perfect. And then what you'll find is that when you do accept this one thing, you'll realize that for the most part, your training is pretty good. And when it's not perfect, it's perfectly normal not to be perfect. Guess what I'm trying to get across here is that your training is never going to be a linear straight line all the way up. You're going to have moments where you're going to plateau off, and it's going to be, well, a bit wibbly wobbly.
Wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey.
There are two things I think great cyclists and athletes should adopt in their training when things aren't going the way that they expect them to. Sometimes good enough is good enough. Progress can also be seen as doing the same thing week in, week out, and just committing to the consistency of that consistency. Now, I'm not saying that your training should be rubbish every week. But what I am saying is this: is that when it doesn't quite go to plan, or if things are a bit off-piste with your training, it happens to every single one of us. I just think with social media and things like that, everybody shows the highlight reel of what they're doing, and no one ever talks about the difficulty of what they're trying to achieve and some of the roadblocks that they hit. So accept the fact that sometimes your training is just going to be a little bit off-piste. This last one I think is really important. Your health and your mental health come first. Let's start off with health. If you're ill, stop. Think about trying to recover hard and fast. Don't push through. I've seen this enough over my time as a cyclist and a coach for training long distance athletes, and they are driven to a point of breaking themselves, and it's really important you don't. So when you're ill, respect your body, pull back, and think about using the mantra, recover hard and fast, so you can get back into more meaningful training and know that you're ready to give it its best shot. Let's talk about mental health, because we can all put way too much pressure on ourselves to hit FTP numbers, ride faster, ride longer, do more crazy things on our bikes. And we don't really need to, because if you think about everything I've just talked about in this video, then it will protect you from trying to be so full on and be more and run yourself into the ground. And you don't need to do that. I have been there, and I train and coach people who have been there. The thing is, if you find yourself totally overwhelmed with your training, you need to take a step back, pull back, speak to your coach, and be really honest with yourself and ask yourself, is that what you really want to do? And put yourself in that environment that's causing these problems. Now, that's not giving up. It's actually taking control of the situation and taking the pressure off your plate. And here's the thing, I've done it. When I was training for Ironman, I decided that actually it was too much. I was running 2 businesses. I was just putting too much on my plate, and I was killing myself mentally. I literally felt miserable on a day-to-day basis trying to train for it. So I took it off my plate, and I really didn't care what anybody else thought. I needed to do that for my own mental health. And this is the thing. If you find that you are training and it's just putting so much pressure on you and you're feeling low because of it, stop. Change. You can always change. That bit's really important to get across. The cool thing about my job is that if I come across cyclists that are like this, I can help them pull themselves back, focus on things that are going to help them enjoy riding their bike more, help them stay fit, and basically get the joy back into their life. That bit's really important. Righty, that's it for this week. If you like this video, do me a favor, hit like, hit subscribe, and I'll be back next week.